This is the Dairy Download brought to you by EverAg Insights and the International Dairy Foods Association, where we offer extra sharp market and policy insights on dairy. I'm your host, Phil Plord.
And I'm your co host, Kathleen Wolfley.
This week's episode is all about protein trends and protein drinks. Everywhere you look these days, you see new products pumped up with dairy proteins. Our two guests are in the daily mix. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, Kathleen, where are we now?
Well, Phil's CME spot prices as of Friday, November 14th. CME block cheddar closed at $1.54, 12 cents lower, lowest prices since March of 2024. Barrels closed at $1.64, down 6 cents. Spot butter finished at $1.58, up a dime on the week, and the spot non-fed milk market finished at $1.18, a 4-cent increase. Phil, I think that the most important thing right now is that we have a ton of milk and a ton of cows. USDA's delayed September milk production report showed a 4% increase in milk production for the month. We've seen some pretty big gains stacked up month after month after month. We saw 40,000 head added to the herd between August and September. That's on top of plus 40,000 head in July to August. So we've got a lot of cows out there, a lot of cow power. And as we go into the tail end of this year, I suspect we'll be in a position to see even more splashy growth numbers as we lap some pretty weak year over year comparisons, especially in California due to last year's HPAI outbreak.
We asked for more milk, and what do you know? We got it. And I mean, do you have any extra cows in your backyard? Because New York State really, right, plus 6%. There's a need for milk in New York with some of the facilities there being built or opening up, and wham, right? Big time production gains. Same, and we saw big gains in South Dakota and Texas and Kansas, the places where there's new capacity.
Exactly. I mean, New York specifically, I think we were up 25,000 head from March of this year. And as I drive around, I see a lot of barns being built. I suspect it's a similar story as you look at some of those other places that you noted: Kansas, Texas, South Dakota. Phil, what's your most important thing this week?
Well, I think related to the cow story is the recent swoon in the price of cattle. So, as of our recording time, early afternoon on Friday, November 14th, December live cattle futures were at 218.85 per hundredweight. That's down almost 12% from the high watermark, all-time high watermark of 248.30 set on October 16th. And so part of the cow story, dairy cow story, is that cattle prices are so high that beef on dairy breeding has become so popular and so lucrative that we are sitting today wondering whether lower milk prices alone will slow production of milk, because all of a sudden dairy farmers have this cow calf side hustle that's paying 450, maybe even more per hundredweight on the income line. So now live cattle prices are off their highs. President Trump seems to have a thing about beef prices, kind of been pounding the lectern for a few weeks, and that has played a role in the sliding prices. So the big question is a 12% decline in cattle prices enough to change the behavior among dairy farmers as it pertains to beef on dairy breeding, culling decisions, all that? So there are scenarios where people say, I'm not going to cull cows because the beef income is so good, where ordinarily you'd start to see some of that culling based on some of the milk prices we're seeing. So this cattle story is the most fascinating thing I've seen in all my years of doing this. And just adding fun to the mix, the president of the United States has got beef prices on his radar, and we have a 12% setback in futures. So how this plays out, we don't know. There's no precedent, but I think it's critical in the months ahead.
Yeah, and we haven't necessarily heard that cash prices at the farm level have really dropped, right? So producers are getting say 1,200 to 1,500 bucks for a day old calf today. Even if it does start to decline to say 1,000, maybe 750, that's still 750, 500 bucks more than they were being paid for a calf 3, 4 years ago. So there's still money on the table. You'd have to see a pretty big drop in order for it to make a difference, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard credible anecdotal reports of over 1,600 for some of these day old beef dairy crosses. And if that market did, to your point, if it retreated to quote unquote only 1,000. Well, if we were talking in January of this year about $1,000 day old calves when they were running 800, 900, you'd have thought, well, how great is that, right? So, yeah, there's questions about anchoring and psychology and the unknown around this.
So you teased to me offline what your stat of the week was, and I think it goes with this whole discussion around beef on dairy. So Phil, what's your stat of the week?
Yes, our talented colleague Katie Burgess in our weekly newsletter this week has a neat comparison. So 1953 was the year the Corvette was introduced, for example.
Ooh.
It was also the last time that we had cow numbers up year over year by more than what they are up today. So, stat of the week plus 228,000 head. That's the year over year increase in US cow numbers in September, the most since 1953. What about you?
Well, Phil, I'm going to stick with a milk production stat of the week, but I'm going to fly across the ocean. European milk production in September up 4.3% year over year. Milk solids production up 5.3% year over year. Not only do we have a lot of milk here in the US, but Europe has had a surprising amount of milk production growth. I think if you were to talk to folks at the end of 2024, early 25, what are the milk production expectations for the EU? They would have said, yeah, maybe flat. I think that's what I was saying. Flat, maybe a little bit of milk production growth, but suddenly you see big splashy numbers out of the EU. And I think that milk handlers, milk processors have just a lot more milk and product on their hands to deal with. And we've certainly seen the deflation in commodity values on the back of that increase in milk supply. So, plus 4.3% in European milk production for September.
Yeah, I mean, our models had US milk production. We contemplated plus 3% at some point in 2025 earlier this year. No one, I don't think anyone had Europe at anything more than plus 2, let alone plus 4.3. And keep in mind, Europe is 1.6 times bigger than the United States in terms of milk production. So that is a huge gain out of nowhere. And when you don't expect that kind of milk coming at you, you don't have a sales plan in place for moving the associated product. And I think to your point, that's why we've seen a wholesale collapse in European dairy prices.
Well, and to add insult to injury, too, we're seeing big milk production growth in New Zealand, too. I think, if I'm not mistaken, their most recent figures were the fourth consecutive record high month in a row. I believe that was September growth as well. So, a lot of milk in New Zealand, the three big exporting regions with a lot of milk on their hands.
Hey, let's just finish the round trip and say that Latin America is crushing it as well with some pretty big pluses there.
Okay, that leads us to our fearless predictions.
People in the wild, Kathleen, are talking about our fearless predictions. It's
They
very
are talking
unnerving.
about our fearless predictions, which always makes me wonder. I need to start writing mine down because people ask and then I can't remember what I said.
Oh, I think ignorance is bliss. I don't remember mine or
I said
yours.
that? Really?
I think I told you my brother-in-law leaned over to me at a wedding the other day and asked about, did Kathleen really say so? I was like, I don't, sure, I don't remember.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with a big fearless one here. We're talking a pretty bearish talk. So my fearless prediction is that the CME block market in 2026 will average 155 per pound or less.
That's bleak and perhaps fearless. I'm going to inject a pat of optimism here. Ha ha. I think that before year end, we will see CME spot butter trade back to 175, if only for a moment. I've been saying
Ooh.
for weeks, I've been saying for weeks that we're oversold. I don't think I deserve any medals for that, for being right this week where we bounced 10 cents. But I just think that we're a little oversold. We're going to move a lot of butter during the holidays because promotions are really strong. So there should be a moment where we rally this thing to 175. I don't think it'll last, but that's my fearless prediction.
Okay. Well, the promotional activity for this week up on a year over year basis by plus 13%. So more stores promoting and at a weaker price. So yeah,
There you have it.
we shall see. All right, Phil, we've got a great lineup today. Let's get to our first guest.
We're excited to have Emily Johnston on the show today. Emily is the Vice President of Brand Marketing for Quest Nutrition at Simply Good Foods. She's a seasoned marketing leader with a track record of building and scaling food brands. Emily, welcome to the Dairy Download.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Okay, holy hot protein. I mean, protein craze is going hard. We see Quest products everywhere you go in terms of in the grocery stores and your targets and whatnot. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your company, Simply Good Foods, and the brand you work with, Quest Nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Simply Good Foods is a portfolio of brands that are all really focused on raising the status quo on snacking, which can look different to a lot of consumers, but is it's about great taste and providing more nutritional value. So, Simply has Atkins, one of the most long-standing weight wellness brands, in the country. We recently acquired OWYN, which stands for Only What You Need, which is an allergen-free brand, mostly known for their great shakes today. And then Quest Nutrition, which is the brand that I work on, which we were founded nearly 15 years ago, 2010. And the goal there was really to flip the macros on craveable products, right? Our founders had kind of strict nutritional goals and they were missing the foods that they craved. So we started with protein bars that were super indulgent flavors like cookies and cream and cookie dough. But then over the years, we kind of stretched that and became much more and looked to increase the protein in all types of products you crave, whether that's salty snacks, candy, baked goods, beverages, while minimizing sugar and net carbs. So really become much more than that bar brand we were in 2010.
I remember where I was when I saw somebody eating a bag of Quest chips. This must have been in 2012 maybe, and I thought, "That's" or it was maybe a little bit later than that, but still, it was kind of like, "Holy smokes, somebody's eating a high protein chip," and now
Yep.
they're everywhere, right? I mean, th we see Dorito flavored or, cheesy nacho flavored Quest chips. We see, lots of different salty snacks and sweet snacks as well in the protein world.
And look, I'm a fan of the OG. The cookie dough protein bars are they're in the cupboard just down the hall. They started off small and become ubiquitous.
Yeah, love to hear it. Before I started working here, I was a Quest consumer, so I was that person having a cookie dough bar every day. So I was really pleased about the employee discount when I started. It saved me a lot of money over the years.
So we've clearly talked about the 3 of us leaning into protein, but from your perspective, what do you think is driving that growth toward increased protein consumption, and how does that align with Simply Good Foods' values?
Yeah, so I think historically, right, when you would have seen that first bag of chips being bought, probably more like 2014, 2015, there was a very specific consumer group that was well educated on protein, typically a really fitness focused consumer. And that was our core and the core of the category for a long time. I would say in the last couple years, what happened is, or what we say inside our building is protein has gone mainstream. All or most consumers have come to understand that yes, protein helps you build muscle, which is probably what we all heard growing up, but it also helps with satiety. It also helps with sustained energy. And so I think as consumers have just become more educated on the power of protein and what it can do for them, it's really opened up the audience, brought more consumers into the category, and then also pushed brands to bring more solutions because these mainstream consumers, they're not necessarily going to be satisfied just drinking a protein shake and eating a bar every day. They're looking for more variety. And so then Simply Good Foods and Quest more specifically, obviously we're thrilled. It feels like people are catching up to maybe what we've been trying to preach for a long time, and it's allowed us to reach more consumers. We started as a brand in Vitamin Shop and GNC, which is a very specific consumer. But now to your point, Phil, you can find us everywhere. And so any consumer, wherever they shop, is going to find protein snacking solutions, which wasn't true even probably 3, 4 years ago.
It seems to me too, Emily, that the Quest story and journey fits nicely with the wellness trend has kind of gone mainstream too. I mean, we track with Placer AI data. We look at Fitness Center. traffic trends, and those have been very positive now for a good couple years running. And then we also have been really following the GLP-1 story and how that's gone, beyond the fringe, and closer to the mainstream. Talk about how those things have played into the growth of Quest.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think with wellness in general, to your point, becoming more mainstream, consumers, both from a diet, exercise, mental health perspective, are just prioritizing it, which I think is why you're seeing consumers that are better educated and now understanding the macro nutritional benefits of a brand like Quest. And then, with GLP-1 specifically, obviously that has changed the game for the entire food industry. For brands like Quest, I think where, it's probably helped us more than hurt us is when you're on a GLP-1, what you see, what consumers say, what research suggests is getting enough protein is kind of the biggest battle because you're eating a lot less, but you want to maintain your muscle and lose more fat. And so consumers are really looking for solutions that are higher in protein and also higher in fiber, which our products happen to already be, which made them kind of well suited and already on shelf, as GLP-1 has become a big thing. And that's true within our full portfolio of brands as well, right? GLP-1 is a big focus for the Atkins weight wellness brand, as a lot of their consumers have started journeys on that medication.
So as we look across grocery stores, Phil and I spend a lot of time in grocery stores, seeing what products are out there. It sure seems like every time you walk into the store, down the cereal aisle or the protein bar aisle, there's new products all the time. And a lot of those products have protein claims. Quest Nutrition recently released a protein packed donut. What, in your mind, are some of the most unique products that the brand has added protein to? And do you think consumers are really out there saying, hey, you know what I really need is a protein packed donut today?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is protein in literally anything, everything, and there's been some pretty funny social media videos about that as well. But I do think, for some consumers, you're looking for that additive protein over the course of the day. So if you can eat something you already wanted to eat and it has a protein benefit, there's a market for that. So in terms of Quest specifically, we chatted briefly about our protein chips. That is by far and away my favorite innovation. We launched our initial chips in 2014, but really it was more like 2018, 2020, where we launched our tortilla style protein chips. And at the time, the entire category, right, is indulgent bars, chocolate shakes, just very sweet focused. And consumers did not have on the go savory snacks. They did not have like crunchy, they were used to chalky protein bars. So launching something in the white space like that, where consumers really didn't have anything like it, was just incredibly fulfilling, and we've seen that our chips businesses has taken off in recent years and become a really big part of our portfolio because of how unique it is. One of my other favorites is our peanut butter cups. So that was our first foray into more candy. So definitely in that indulgent space. But I like it as an example because within 6 months, it was one of our top selling items. It was a rocket ship. And what that always tells us is, okay, we met an unmet need, right? Consumers did not have a candy solution that was protein forward, that wasn't filled with sugar. So that would be an example of us nailing it, so to speak. So I always go to those, though. I do love the donut that you just brought up. We just launched that, and that's become a staple for me.
What about price? We work do Kathy and I do a lot of work studying the ingredient space, and certainly the whey protein isolates, whey protein concentrate prices have been very firm, record highs, and this protein trend is, playing a huge role in that. And we see prices to consumers rising. So far, the space seems impervious to higher prices, or largely impervious to higher prices. Is that a concern at some point where you just sort of run out of real estate with consumer wallets?
Yeah, I mean, I think price is always a concern, especially in certain macroeconomic environments, right? But to your point, protein is expensive. Um, and I do think, what we understand from our existing consumers is they're willing to pay a premium because they are prioritizing their wellness in some way. So we definitely have products, I think, that are more elastic than others. Historically, our protein bars, for example, are pretty inelastic because they're such a part of people's routines. They're prioritizing getting that protein from a bar. And so even when times maybe get a little bit tougher, they keep coming back to that bar. I do think with products that are maybe snackier, they're still a protein hit, but they're not as high in protein. That's where consumers may, hey, is it really worth the price there? But so far, despite the macroeconomic environment that we're in today, consumers do seem to understand the importance of protein and why Quest is priced where we are, and we have been able to grow.
Yeah, and I imagine too that from a marketing and merchandising perspective, the retailers must love these products because they're not hiding them, right? You
Mhm.
walk down Main Street in Target and you invariably see some RTD drinks, you see some RTD powders, maybe not the right brand from your perspective, but they wouldn't be. And you walk into Walmart, first thing on the left, which is very valuable real estate, you see protein stuff. Talk about the how you work with retailers to make this stuff go.
Yeah. So, there's some retailers that have been partners in the protein space forever. And then there's some, right, that have come to understand the importance of it. And that first starts with putting it in the aisle where that protein consumer is seeking it. So, in your examples of Walmart and Target, that's typically almost in the pharmacy set, over with vitamins and other things they would buy. So, we come in and we talk about how can we actually get these beyond just your aisle and into those end caps, into those valuable places when you walk into the store? And I think what's happened is that as again, protein has become this mainstream trend, retailers have woken up and brands like Quest have helped educate them that we can actually grow your category if you put it somewhere else in the store where a consumer finds it, and then they will become a shopper of your aisle, but they might not have gone there on their own had they not seen that placement by a check lane or by the door. So I think retailers get it, and now that they've seen how valuable that protein consumer is, they want to grow that base by putting it in other parts of store to catch attention.
The other area where I've seen protein feature prominently or increasingly feature is in C-stores. You go into a gas station and, oh, maybe you would have picked up a candy bar for a long drive, but you see a protein bar instead and think, "Yeah, maybe that's probably the better choice rather than, something super sweet." So, are you seeing protein make a bigger splash in terms of overall dollar sales into C-stores?
Absolutely. The convenience channel has been a huge growth engine for the Quest brand in the last couple of years. And when we look at competitive brands, you see that as well because it was under indexed and underserved for all those years. I think mass retailers, grocery caught up to protein faster. And now C store is starting to see the value of protein products because while it still has to be that convenient on the go, that's a non negotiable. Now, especially because their stores are small, they're merchandised right next to the quote unquote bad for you item. So a consumer really can do the quick calculus of do I want this bag of, high sugar candies or do I want this better for you protein version of it? And they're sitting right next to each other. Whereas in a lot of stores, right, those might be two completely different aisles. So I think that has helped on convenience as well as consumers can do the math right in front of both items and then make a quick choice.
Yeah, I mean, this is a different variety of C store, but I mean, airports too. I mean, the airport C stores, Lots of protein bar facings these days.
Yes, as someone who travels a lot, it's actually been great that now I have more options, whether it is, the protein snacks that are or shelf stable, but even in the cooler, right, at a Hudson News now, there's high protein yogurt, string cheese. They're clearly seeing that consumers on the go. Some of them still want to go to that airport restaurant and have that like 9 a.m. beer, but a lot of us are looking for something quick, high protein to just get us from point A to point B.
Hard to expense that.
Yeah, exactly.
On this episode, we're talking specifically about ready to drink beverages and protein. What are some of the products Quest offers in that space?
Yes. So ready to drink has definitely been something that Quest has dabbled in over the years, but I would say it became a much bigger focus in the last two or so as we went into launching our protein milkshakes, which launched about 6 months ago with 45 grams of protein. And really, how we came to launch that was we talked to consumers in the beverage space about unmet needs, and what we heard is the thing we crave, the thing we miss the most is milkshakes. And then I was actually pretty surprised about this. Almost 75% of the consumers we talked to said their ideal protein shake would have 40 to 50 grams of protein, which is really different than a few years ago when everything was 30 grams or under. So we leaned in big on, creating that product to basically satisfy consumers in the protein shake space that just didn't feel like they were getting the right taste or enough protein, and then also to bring more consumers in. Um, and then a few years prior to that, we actually launched our iced coffees, which is one of my favorite products. This is more of just a traditional iced coffee alternative. So 10 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar, and a, a serious caffeine hit that's about 2 cups of coffee. So it's really meant to fit the need of a healthier iced coffee with the benefit of protein, but it's not meant to be this 40, 50-gram post workout shake. So that's really resonated, I think, with more of a mainstream consumer versus that 45-gram milkshake with maybe more of a traditional consumer. And then we do have more on the horizon. I can't share things that aren't out yet, but I would say next spring we're taking a really big swing and ready to drink that we think is going to hopefully revolutionize beverage within our protein aisle that much further.
Well, with that cliffhanger,
I know.
thanks so much for joining us on the Dairy Download.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Now let's get the fluid bottler perspective.
Today, we're excited to be joined by Matt Lally, Senior Director of Analytics and Insights at Shamrock Farms. Matt leads analytics and insights across all of Shamrock's dairy categories, including fluid milk, cultured products, and ready-to-drink protein shakes. Before joining Shamrock, Matt spent over a decade at Nielsen and was an international speaker and press contributor for the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, and the New York Times. Matt, thank you so much for joining us on the Dairy Download.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Tell us a little bit about Shamrock Farms, the history of the company, and its products.
Shamrock Farms is a 100-year-old family-owned company. We started back in 1922 when our Irish immigrant W.T. McGlellan arrived here in Arizona, and he and his wife Winifred established the Shamrock Dairy. Just a couple of cows and a truck. They did all the milking, bottling, delivery themselves, and they really just earned a reputation for their work ethic and their high-quality milk. Fast forward 100 years, and today it's one of the largest family-owned and operated dairies nationally. We've still got a farm, more than 20,000 cows in Arizona, and today we have production facilities in both Arizona and Virginia.
Yeah, so the company's distribution scope has expanded across the country, right? You can find Shamrock foods, beverages just about everywhere, right?
Absolutely. So never wavering from our founders' work ethic and high quality products. We've really used that to help us grow nationally. We're sold in all 50 states, more than 150,000 retail, grocery, and quick service restaurants. We're actually the number one milk brand in quick service restaurants nationwide, and the number one dairy brand in Arizona.
Let's talk protein. The craze continues. From your perspective, what's driving this growth? Clearly, Shamrock is in the on this protein craze. How is Rockin' Protein positioning itself to lead the protein shake category?
It's a good question, and I think there's two pieces that I want to break down for you. If we can just start by taking a step back and really talking about the protein trend as a whole, there's a lot of factors that have combined to create this real force. Based on our research, I would say it's a result of three main areas, though. There's this surge in consumer demands, the change in media and how we're consuming that, and then most recently, the impact of GLP-1s. I've been working in the CPG industry for more than 15 years now, and I'll say protein isn't new. I used to talk with meat manufacturers about this all the time, but I think what we're witnessing right now reflects just how much has also changed in those 15 years, particularly as it relates to consumer lifestyle changes, social media influence. I mean, if you think about this for a minute, 15 years ago, when I started in this industry, Instagram didn't exist. Snapchat didn't exist. TikTok didn't exist. Not to mention, only a fraction of the population was on Facebook. So now you have the rise of influencers, trending viral videos that have become such common sources of information for a lot of people that it can push a trend mainstream pretty quickly. And I think protein has been one of those trends where more and more people are talking about it. So people are paying closer attention to it now. And honestly, it's been a real boon for dairy categories. And the more that the dairy industry can lean into this moment and equate dairy with protein, the better it is. If you look across the store, among all food and beverage categories, some of the fastest growing are dairy categories like cottage cheese and Greek yogurt that are also rich in protein. Cottage cheese is another great example of that, where the power of social media has really boosted sales thanks to videos around recipes for smooth cottage cheese protein bowls, cottage cheese toast. So there's been this massive shift in media consumption that's created this ripple effect. Then in the more recent years, we've entered an era of more common usage of GLP-1 medications, which of course have been approved to assist with weight loss, among other usages. And some estimates put usage around 1 out of 10 people, 1 out of 8 people who have been or are currently using this medication. And we're starting to learn a lot about this group of people. And what's most important here is because of the medication's appetite suppressant impact, users are looking for more nutrient dense foods for meals and snacks. And that's where protein shakes in particular are coming to play.
Matt, you touched on GLP-1, and I'm just kind of curious what makes dairy so special for people using a GLP-1 type drug, or if they're on a specific diet. And to follow up on that, how can the industry better tap into that market?
Yeah, I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian, but we do understand that because of the appetite suppressant nature of GLP-1 medications, when you have a product like Rockin' Protein Builder with 30 grams of high quality protein in one bottle, or our Rockin' Protein Builder Max, which actually has 50 grams of protein in the bottle, it's a fantastic way for users to be able to ensure that they're getting a lot of natural nutrients without feeling like they need to go out and eat a full meal, which for some users of these medications is just something that isn't really appealing. So we really feel like protein shakes can just be an opportunity to ensure that users are getting as much of those nutrients and kind of that easy consumption as possible.
Do you see, we've been tracking here, you know, under the big umbrella of wellness trends. So beyond the GLP-1 dimension, um, we see visits to fitness centers are up pretty substantially and sequentially over the last little bit. Is the wellness thing also on your radar, just more generically than the weight loss medications?
Absolutely. They truly go hand in hand. We actually launched, our line of shakes back in 2008. At the time, it was called Rock and Refuel. But the idea and the concept was born out of this notion of consumers who were on this health and wellness journey. And we felt that from various pieces of research, protein shakes could play an important role in that. And I think that is still just as applicable, if not even more, today. When you talk about health and wellness, often those two terms get used together interchangeably, but it's really a spectrum. So, what may be a desirable decision for one is, I'm just trying to be a little bit healthier. Or for another, it might be a different kind of piece of that spectrum. But as we think about what is the long term opportunity for protein shakes, we do very much keep the holistic wellness journey as a focal point of our research. So, DMI released some fantastic research, I think it was last year, around these wellness demand landscapes. And that's something that we've been leveraging to really explore what's next. Where else can we continue to innovate and evolve to ensure that we're delivering on the holistic kind of wellness journey of a lot of different demographics and folks out there?
So, without divulging state secrets, I mean, is there a sense for what's next? I mean, for better, for worse. I mean, for better, right? I mean, these ready to drink products have become ubiquitous. You see them kind of, pushed out at the big retailers and available everywhere. Any sense for what's next generally?
Yeah, there's no doubt that they anywhere you turn, protein is in your face. And protein shakes in particular have continued to launch more and more products. But the reality is, as it stands today, still only 4 out of 10 people have purchased a protein shake in the last year. So while we talk about it a lot and while it feels like it's everywhere, there's still a tremendous amount of upside for just getting people to give basic protein shakes if you try to give it a try. But we recognize that, hey, look, there's still opportunity to innovate. So whether that's additional nutrients or formulations that have simpler, cleaner ingredients, the diversity of shopper needs, going back to that spectrum of wellness, it's going to continue to evolve. And so we still feel like there's a lot of opportunity with our core main lineup of products, but it doesn't mean we don't have our eye on the future. And that's where we're looking to continue to innovate and make sure that there's something that can kind of meet folks where they at, regardless of their journey on that health and wellness.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us on the Dairy Download and telling us a little bit more about functional proteins in RTD beverages.
It's been a pleasure to be on the episode today. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
That's a wrap for today's show. As always, we want to thank our production team, Matt Herrick, Mariah Minnick, Andrew Jerome and Jeff Cullen at IDFA, and Abby Bauer over here at Everag. If you are interested in what Kathleen and I do for our day jobs, check us out at ever.ag. Remember, if you enjoy the show, hit the subscribe button, leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, and tell a friend.
Thanks for listening to the Dairy Download. Until next time, stay sharp.